My name is Maren Ellis, 34 years old. The air at the resort smelled of salt and sunscreen, the kind of artificial paradise my parents liked to post on Facebook. Palm trees bent lazily in the wind, the pool shimmered turquoise under umbrellas, and kids shrieked as if joy were automatic. For my daughter, Iris, it was. She was 7 and had been glowing for weeks, talking about running with her cousins, belonging, finally being part of something bigger than just the two of us. I wanted that for her, maybe more than she wanted it for herself. Then Bianca, my older sister, stood with her beach tote slung over one shoulder, her grin sharp enough to slice glass. "Okay, cousins," she called, her voice too bright, like she was auditioning for a commercial. Out came a neat stack of folded white t-shirts. "Special shirts for everyone!" A chorus of cheers, squeals, the perfect Instagram reveal. Max tore his open. The snack monster. He puffed out his chest, crumbs already stuck to his chin, and everyone laughed. Phoebe spun with hers, the explorer, already darting toward the dunes. Another cousin had the fish, and cannonballed back into the pool, spraying the deck with water. Adults clapped, chuckled, clinked their glasses. Light-hearted, silly, harmless. And then it was Iris's turn. She peeled the plastic carefully, like treasure. She held it up. 3 words. The mistake. For a moment, silence strangled the poolside. Then Max snorted. Phoebe doubled over, cackling. A few cousins joined, their laughter sharp, bouncing against the slap of waves. Iris stared, lips parting, but no sound coming out. The cotton trembled in her hands, the bold black letters already branding themselves into her skin. I saw her face collapse, sparkle draining, as if someone had pulled the plug. My father chuckled. "Better she hears it now." His voice landed like a gavel. No one objected. Not Bianca, smirking like she'd delivered the punchline of the century. Not my mother, sipping her drink, eyes glazed as though this were beneath her. Not Josh, my younger brother, who hunched over his phone, pretending to scroll. Not one of them. Iris hugged the shirt against her chest as though hiding it would erase it. Her cheeks flushed, her eyes wide, searching for me. I felt something in my ribs crack. My chair screeched as I stood, glass sharp. I reached for her hand, small and shaking, but mine to protect. "We're leaving." My voice cut clean through their laughter. Gasps rippled. Someone muttered, "Overreacting?" Bianca rolled her eyes. My mother's face pinched, her mouth tight with disapproval. I didn't care. We walked past the pool, past every face that chose silence over decency. The shirt dangled from Iris's fist, the word burning across the cotton like a scar. Outside the gates, the air was cooler, sharper, almost kind. I knelt, brushing damp hair from her face. Tears streaked her cheeks, though she hadn't realized she was crying. I pulled her close. Inside, I was fire. That was the spark, but the dynamite had been stacked for years. The car ride home buzzed with the silence that isn't empty, but electric. The aircon hissed like static. Iris stared out the window, clutching the shirt in her lap, tracing the seam with her finger as though erasing letters only she could see. I glanced in the mirror, waiting for a sob, a scream, anything. Nothing. Finally, in the driveway, she whispered, "Mom, can we just stay in our room tonight?" Our room, a cramped corner in a house that had never really been ours. The words lodged in me like a splinter. I kissed her forehead and nodded. That night, while she slept, I sat at the kitchen table, surrounded by papers, receipts, bills, transfers, every cent I'd handed over under the guise of support. A ledger of a life bled dry. And under it all, one truth. The deed had always been in my name. My signature at 23, when Mom had said, "Just a formality, honey. We'll handle the payments." I had believed her then. I was the middle child. That was my role. Bianca, the golden one, their investment. Josh, the baby, allowed to stumble and rise. Me, the useful one, the glue. You lean on glue, but you don't brag about it. When Bianca's beauty business collapsed, dragging my parents' credit down with it, they turned to me. I had the clean record, the steady paycheck. "Just a formality," they said. And so, on paper, the house was mine. In reality, it was theirs. At least that's what they told themselves. Then Iris was born. Too early, too fragile, a tiny bird of a child tethered by wires in the NICU. Night after night, I sat under sterile lights, listening to the beep of machines, begging her chest to rise again. Insurance covered some. The rest devoured everything I had. Savings gone. Loan signed. Every cent funneled into keeping her alive. She fought. She won. She came home with only a small hearing aid tucked behind her ear. My miracle. But my parents noticed the money had stopped flowing into their emergencies. Mom's voice, years later, still in my head, all your money went there. As if saving Iris had been reckless. They played at support for a while. Meals delivered, rides offered, hand-me-downs dropped at the door. I thought it meant family. Safety. I moved into the house, imagining shared strength, but soon it was the old script. Groceries, utilities, repairs. It's only fair. And with each promotion, each new client, the number grew, until I was paying more for the house than I ever had for my own rental. Outside, they told the world, we let Maren and the baby stay with us, smiling like saints. Inside, the reality, me carrying them, again. Even Iris saw it. She grew bright, funny, curious, but the favoritism trickled down. Bianca's kids praised for flushing a toilet. Iris's hearing aid mocked as robot ear. Her spark dimmed by the same shadows I'd grown up under. That night, after this t-shirt, I spread the papers into neat piles. I had proof. Years of transactions. Every cent recorded. Screenshots of group chats where Mom bragged about supporting me in public while privately asking for more money. The folder sat heavy under my hand. It felt heavier than paper should, more like a key. And keys sound different when you realize they're yours. I whispered to Iris through the cracked bedroom door, "It won't always be like this." She stirred, curled small against her pillow. Tomorrow, I told myself. Tomorrow I go to a lawyer. Tomorrow I stop being the guest in my own home. The lawyer's office smelled of old books and something faintly metallic, like paper clips left too long in rain. I sat across from him with the folder heavy on my lap. He flipped through receipts, transfers, bank statements, the ledger of my life. His brows knit tighter with each page. Finally, he looked up, eyes steady. "Maren, whose name is on the deed?" "Mine," I said. The word almost caught in my throat. "Then it's your house." He closed the folder gently, as if sealing something sacred. "You can evict them." It sounded so simple when he said it. Years of quiet endurance, reduced to a line in a legal book. My pulse roared in my ears. "They'll fight me," I murmured. "They always do." "Then you have proof." He tapped the folder. "More than enough. But I need you to prepare for the fallout. Families. They don't just lose houses. They lose the masks that kept them together." I nodded. Somewhere inside, a sliver of steel hardened. That evening, the kitchen table became a stage. My lawyer sat beside me, the eviction notice folded in front of him like a blade wrapped in linen. My palms pressed flat against the wood to steady my trembling. The front door swung open. My parents entered with suitcases trailing behind, faces still flushed from the beach, laughter still clinging to their skin. Mom's voice was syrupy sweet. "We're home." Then she froze. Her eyes flicked to the stranger at the table, to the papers between us, to me. Confusion flashed, then suspicion. "What's this?" Dad set down the bags with a thud, his jaw tightening. "Maren?" The lawyer stood smoothly. "Mr. and Mrs. Ellis, my name is Paul Henderson. I'm here on behalf of your daughter." He slid the papers across the table. "You're being served. This is a 30-day eviction notice." For a second, they didn't understand. They looked at each other, then back at him, their expressions almost comical in their disbelief. Dad's voice cracked. "Eviction? That's ridiculous. We own this house." I rose, knees weak, but voice steady. "No, it's in my name. It's always been in my name." Mom's laugh was brittle, too loud, as though the sound itself might crack the truth. "That was a formality. You know that. We asked you as a favor." "A favor?" My voice cut sharper than I meant. "You asked because your credit was ruined after Bianca's failure. I was 23, and since then, I've paid more into this house than either of you ever did." The room thickened with silence. Mom's smile faltered. Dad's face flushed red. "You're not serious," he said. "You wouldn't actually do this." "I am." Bianca entered then, her sandals clicking on the tile. She paused, reading the room, then put on her version of a peacemaker's face, lips curved in sympathy, voice syrup soft. "Let's all calm down. We're family. We can talk this out." She angled herself between us, her tone practiced, like a mediator for a show no one asked for. Maren, you're upset. They're upset. Maybe we just need to... No, my voice cut her off. This isn't a discussion. It's done. Her smile tightened, but her eyes gleamed. She wasn't surprised. She was preparing her next move. Dad stepped closer to the table, his chest puffing like a man about to swing a hammer. A man provides for his family. That's what this house is. My roof, my rules. You've lived here because of us. You charge me rent, I snapped. You bled me dry while telling the world you were saints. I paid for this roof. I built these rules. Paul, the lawyer, cleared his throat, grounding the moment. You have 30 days. I suggest you begin arrangements immediately. Mom gripped the counter so tightly her knuckles whitened. We gave you everything, she hissed. And you repay us like this? My chest rose and fell like I'd run a mile. No, I repaid you 10 times over, and it's still never been enough. Silence slammed down, heavy and suffocating. Bianca broke it with a sigh, shaking her head. You'll regret this, Maren. Her tone wasn't anger, it was calculation. Like she already had the next move lined up. The lawyer gathered his papers, his calm presence a buffer between their fury and my shaking hands. As we walked toward the door, he leaned close and whispered, They'll come at what they think you fear most. Be ready. Behind us, the house hummed with fury, Mom whispering sharp and fast, Dad pacing, Bianca's voice a low thread of strategy. Their silence wasn't surrender, it was plotting. On the way out, I caught sight of Mrs. Hanlon, our neighbor, watering her begonias across the fence. She paused, hose in hand, watching as my parents' voices rose behind closed windows. She didn't wave, just stood there, a silent witness. That night, lying in bed, I thought about what Paul had said. What did I fear most? Losing Iris. Losing the little girl who'd already been branded by their cruelty, who already thought of a corner room as ours. I held her as she slept, her hearing aid clicking faintly as she breathed, and I realized Paul was right. That would be their weapon. And if they used it, I would need to be sharper, steadier, more dangerous than I had ever been. The fuse was lit. The countdown had begun. The living room smelled faintly of lemon polish, like my mother had scrubbed it for a guest of honor, but the air carried another scent. Trap. I knew it the moment I stepped inside. 3 juice glasses sat waiting on the coffee table, condensation already bleeding into coasters. Bianca leaned casually against the arm of the sofa, her legs crossed, her smirk too easy. My parents sat lined up like a tribunal, their eyes rehearsed, their disappointment preloaded. Just to talk, Mom said, her tone syrupy. We don't want things to get ugly. I sat on the edge of the couch, back straight, palms on my knees. Every muscle in my body screamed that this wasn't a conversation. It was theater. Dad leaned forward, his voice rough with authority. Maren, you can't go through with this eviction. It's cruel. It's wrong. You'll regret it. I didn't answer. If you insist on stealing from us, Mom pressed, we'll have no choice but to tell the truth about you. I raised an eyebrow, dry humor my shield. That'll be new? Bianca leaned in, her voice velvet but her eyes sharp. We'll go to CPS. The words landed like a stone in my chest. Mom jumped in quickly, too quickly, like she'd practiced. We'll tell them you drink. We'll show them the videos. My mind snapped to last summer's barbecue. 1 glass of wine while Iris played tag with cousins. That was their ammunition? And we'll testify, Bianca added smoothly. 3 witnesses, independent. Dad folded his hands. Do you really think they'll believe you over us? 3 adults, family, united. The room tilted, my throat tightened. For a second I heard it, the phantom beep of NICU monitors, that sound my body remembered as panic. But I didn't flinch, I didn't shout, I didn't cry. I stayed still, my breath slow, my eyes steady. Because I'd known. Before I walked in, I had slipped my phone into my pocket and pressed record. A gut feeling had told me they'd try something, and now their voices filled the air, sealing their own noose. I stood. We're done here. Mom's voice cracked. If you walk out, it only proves you're unfit. I didn't answer. I took Iris by the hand and walked her out, past the polished lemon air, past Bianca's smirk, past Dad's clenched fists. That night we stayed at a friend's apartment across town. Iris clutched her backpack like it was armor. She looked up at me, eyes wide. Mom, are we in trouble? I crouched down, brushing hair from her face. No, sweetheart, grown-ups can be wrong. Sometimes they're just wrong loudly. Her lip quivered, but she nodded. She trusted me. That trust was all I had left to guard. The next morning, Paul played the recording in his office. Their voices spilled out into the quiet room. If you insist on stealing from us, we'll tell the truth about you. We'll go to CPS, 3 witnesses, independent. When the audio ended, the silence pressed in, heavy, but different than the silence at home. This one had weight. Paul leaned back, his eyes narrowing. This is extortion, false reporting, a crime. My hands clenched. So what do we do? He tapped the phone. We serve them with their own words. Make it clear. If they move forward, this goes to the police first. Blackmail, extortion, false reporting, felonies. They'll bury themselves. For the first time in weeks, a laugh escaped me. Dry, bitter, almost disbelieving. Finally, they'll tell the truth without meaning to. That evening, we went back to the house. Not with Iris. She stayed safe with my friend. Just me and Paul. My parents and Bianca were at the kitchen table, mid-conversation, voices low and sharp. When we walked in, they froze. What now? Dad growled, standing like he might lunge. Paul didn't waste time. He set my phone on the table, pressed play, and let their voices betray them. We'll go to CPS. 3 witnesses. The color drained from Mom's face halfway through. Dad's jaw worked, but his voice faltered. Bianca's smirk cracked, folding in on itself. When the recording ended, the silence was brutal. Paul leaned forward, his voice calm but sharp enough to cut glass. This is blackmail, extortion, false reporting, all felonies. If you so much as make a call to CPS, this recording goes to the police. You won't just lose this house. You'll face criminal charges. Dad slammed his fist on the table. She's our daughter. She's stealing from us. I met his glare, my voice steady as stone. Correction. I'm your daughter, and I'm done letting you steal from me. Mom shook her head, tears bright in her eyes. We trusted you. We gave you everything. You're tearing this family apart. No, I whispered. You did that the second you called my child a mistake. For once, none of them had an answer. They shouted, yes, betrayal, selfish, ungrateful. But beneath the noise, something new flickered in their eyes. Fear. Because this time I wasn't bluffing. As we walked out, I noticed a folder half buried under bills on the counter, bank branding on the corner, a glimpse of words, refinance application. I didn't pick it up. Not yet. But I knew then the battle wasn't over. The 30 days ticked away like a countdown bomb. Every morning, I woke to the sound of cupboards slamming harder than necessary, of footsteps dragging too heavy down the hall. The house wasn't quiet, it pulsed with hostility. Their silence wasn't surrender. It was a drumbeat, steady, warning. The first week, the little sabotages began. The water bill accidentally went unpaid, though I'd set it to auto-draft. A notice from the HOA appeared on the door. Complaints of noise, pets I didn't own, trash cans left out at times I hadn't been home. At work, my supervisor called me in with a frown. We received an anonymous email, she said carefully, claiming you have substance issues. Her eyes searched my face, unsure. I took a slow breath, told her the truth. It's retaliation from family I'm evicting. I showed her the eviction paperwork, the recording. She believed me, but the tremor of humiliation lingered. Iris felt it too. Kids at school whispered. One afternoon she asked, "Why did Phoebe tell everyone I might not live with you anymore?" My chest clenched. They'd spread it to her, to the playground, like poison. I knelt, took her hands. Listen to me. You're with me. Always. No one can take you from me. She nodded, but the question stayed in her eyes. Then, one night, I found something slipped into my mailbox. A plain USB drive, no note. I knew before plugging it in. Josh, my brother, the baby, the one who'd stayed silent. On the drive, a PDF, scanned bank documents, emails, a refinance application in my name, my social security number, my forged signature, dated months ago. My parents had planned to cash out the house behind my back. That folder on the kitchen counter hadn't been a fluke. The air around me felt electric, my heart slamming as I scrolled. They hadn't just bled me. They'd been ready to gut me. The next morning, I handed it to Paul. His lips thinned as he read. This is fraud, identity theft. If you want, we take it to the police today. I shook my head slowly. Not yet. Let's keep it in the chamber. Because part of me needed them to know I knew. that I could burn them to ash if I wanted. By week 3, boxes appeared in the hall. Mom packed with brittle efficiency, wrapping glassware and newspaper with jerky movements. Dad carried his tools to the garage, each slam of the metal drawer deliberate, echoing. Bianca hovered like a queen exiled from her throne, her tone swinging between pity and venom. "You'll regret this, Maren," she murmured one night, passing me in the hall. "Family's all you've got. When we're gone, who'll have your back?" I stared at her. "You mean who'll have their hand in my pocket?" Her smirk cracked. She turned away. One evening, Mom cornered me in the kitchen, voice low, shaking. "Do you remember when you took your first steps down this hallway?" your father cried. "You're erasing everything we built here." I wanted to scream. Instead, I said, "I'm reclaiming what I built here, with every paycheck you called a gift, with every sacrifice you called selfish." Her eyes filled, but not with remorse, with rage. The days crawled toward the deadline. Iris stayed mostly in her room, coloring, humming under her breath. One night, I peeked in. She had drawn our house, big and square, but only 2 figures in front, her and me, no one else. I swallowed hard and kissed the top of her head. On the 30th day, dawn came pale and sharp. Suitcases lined the entryway. My parents moved like ghosts, faces set, mouths tight. No words, no apologies, just the scrape of zippers, the drag of wheels. Bianca muttered curses under her breath as she hefted her bags. I didn't watch them go. Through the blinds, I caught a glimpse of Mrs. Hanlon across the fence, hose in hand again. She paused, looked at me, and gave a single nod. Not pity, not curiosity. Acknowledgement. A witness. The door shut. Silence fell. For the first time, it wasn't heavy. It wasn't hostile. It was mine. Still, I knew better than to mistake silence for safety. Because people who'd nearly stolen everything didn't walk away empty, and that refinance attempt sat in my lawyer's folder like a live wire, waiting. 6 months later, the house breathed differently. No slammed doors, no whispered curses behind walls, just space, just quiet, the kind that didn't suffocate, but stretched open like sky. Iris filled it with sound. She laughed louder now, invited friends from school, plastered the fridge with her drawings. Music spilled from her little speaker, songs she sang off-key without caring. She ran through the hallways barefoot, not worried about who might be listening, not bracing for sharp words disguised as jokes. For the first time, our home felt like home. I'd cut contact completely. No calls, no texts, no messages trickling in under false pretenses. I blocked Bianca's number the day after they left, when she tried to send a photo of Iris's cousins with a smug caption, "Family forever." Mom and Dad never reached out directly, not until the letter arrived. It came in a plain white envelope, her handwriting neat, controlled. I stared at it for a long time before opening it. Inside, page after page, not an apology, a justification. She wrote about her childhood in a house with too many mouths and not enough bread, how she'd promised herself she'd never live with scarcity again. She said everything they took from me was balance, that my sacrifices were just part of the arithmetic of family. At the end, one line, "You will understand when Iris is older. Children always cost more than they give back." I folded the letter and slid it into a box I'd labeled Truth. Inside it already sat the eviction papers, the screenshots of her group chats, the recordings. Not to weaponize, not anymore, just to remember. Because forgetting would mean one day letting them back in. And that was a door I wasn't opening. The refinance attempt was resolved quietly. The bank flagged the application as fraud months back, shut it down before it could scar my credit. Paul confirmed the title was still clean. My name and mine alone. Relief came not as fireworks, but as a slow exhale, the kind that unclenches a body you didn't know was tensed. Then came Josh's call. My phone lit up with his name one evening while Iris colored on the living room rug. For a moment, I thought about ignoring it. Then I answered. His voice was hesitant, softer than I remembered. "Maren, I need you to know, I wasn't part of the t-shirt thing, or the CPS threat. I heard about it, and it was messed up. You did the right thing." Silence stretched between us. Finally, I said, "Thank you for saying that. I know it doesn't change what they did," he added. "But if Iris ever wants to go to the science fair next month, me and Claire could take her, just as family, no pressure. I didn't commit. I didn't slam the door either. Maybe one day, in the right way, with the right boundaries. Maybe. That night, I watched Iris sleep, the small curve of her body under the blanket, the hum of her hearing aid charger steady like a nightlight. She was not the mistake. She was the proof. Proof that love wasn't arithmetic, wasn't debt and repayment, wasn't measured by ledgers or sacrifices tallied. She was my miracle, my home. People ask if I regret it, if evicting my own parents was too far. I think about the letter, the laughter at the pool, the blackmail whispered in my living room. I think about the way Iris looks at me now, certain, unafraid. And I wonder, did I go too far? Or not nearly far enough?